Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Kathy Grimm, the Grim Reader, here to offer you some suggestions for big books, long books. I just went around and grabbed stuff from my shelves, and I have talked about most of these already on my channel in previous videos, so you can go check them out if you're so inclined. And I'll just talk very generally about them because I don't want to, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's obvious that so much could be said about all of these, like whole videos could be done, and in some cases I've done whole videos. Or anyway, I'm just going to introduce these to you, and I think I'm just going to do it. I have the piles around me in order of old to new. And so for that one, the oldest one and the longest, in a way, I think it's the biggest book at least, and it was my favorite read of 2023 before Jerusalem, and it's Clarissa by Samuel Richardson, which I would never have thought would have been my favorite book. And this is, I will always make it clear if I mainly listened to them or read them with my eyes, and this was a mainly listen, but I did get it, and I did mark up some, because there's a lot of very memorable speechifying, or it's an epistolary novel from 1747, and the fact that it's all in letters is so interesting to me. And part of the connection I felt to it, I think in general my preference perhaps even for long books is they become quasi, you have a relationship with these books and the people in them, and you live in them or with them. And so, and if you're enjoying that experience, the longer the better. And that's how it was with Clarissa, even though it is sad and harrowing at some points. And it's just so good. It's just so in depth, the psychology of it all. I just loved it so much. Listening to it, the reading, it was just on Audible, and it was different voices for Clarissa and her best friend, who's such an important person in the book, Anna Howe, and then the other people too, and then the main bad guy, Lovelace, Love something. Is it Love? What's his name? Love? The evil doer. Yes, so that's my first suggestion. And this one I would suggest if you're having a hard time. I actually do remember starting to read it once when I wasn't that I could just tell I wasn't into it in general. I was trying to do a read along with other people or something, and that's why I bought it back then. This was a couple of years ago, and I started reading it, and I couldn't wrap my mind around the long 18th century sentences and everything. So actually reading it, and it is a small font too, so listening really helped. And actually, it reminds me, this all happened because of what I'm now calling Trump talk. I'm off of Trump talk for good. I just hate the whole idea of what he did there with TikTok. I'm also probably off Meta. I'm probably off Facebook and Instagram, probably for good. I'm not sure. I've been off for a couple of days. It's like tangent, I'm sorry. So YouTube is it, and Blue Sky is it. Anyway, point being, some cutie patootie wanted to do a read along. He's a Penguin editor, and he got us all started on Clarissa, bunch of old ladies. And he just stopped because he got busy, because that's life happens, especially if you're trying to read the whole thing. And then I kept going because I just loved it so much. And I'm so glad this kind of oomph of a group read that, however, it doesn't matter what happens to it, it just got me into it enough to want to read it on my own. So that's Clarissa. Try and keep things short here because I just want to make one video. Moving on to the next one. So we're getting to the 19th century here, and I'm looking, what's the next one? It looks like the next one is 1838, and it's what I did do a video about this, a short video about how wonderful it is. Nicholas Nickleby, my favorite new reread, almost my favorite, second favorite reread of, not reread, just reacquainting myself with Dickens. I hadn't read it before. Also a listen. My favorite reader is Simon Vance, and he does a fantastic job with all the voices, and just the characters are wonderful. I think I love this more than David Copperfield, and that's saying a lot because I love David Copperfield. So another listen and read. This one, I think I listened to it mainly. I didn't really feel the need to go into it as much. It was easy to follow. It had a through line that was held me in attention enough. But this might be one that would be fun to go back to and actually read, maybe. That would be good. I'm sure I would get even more out of it. But so I'm glad I have the book. Plus, it's one of my favorites, the Oxford. It fits. The 1838 that was. And then we get into let's see here, 1838, Looks like 1852. So that's the other Dickens. Just gonna get my dates here. And that would be Bleak House, my favorite Dickens reread, which is, and this was also a listen. I don't know who read this one, but fantastic novel. Actually, in a way, I think I prefer to reread this one because I think it's more, actually, yes, no, I would reread this before I would actually read it before I would read Nicholas, because I think it's just worthy of it. Oh, it's such a fantastic novel. And it, to me, even though it's about this house, there's a lot of urban stuff. There's a lot of poor people in London, spontaneous combustion. It's just got everything. It's just an amazing novel. The stationery shop, as a stationery person, I remember the stationery shop. All the little tangents about sort of business stuff. I just love it so much. So Bleak House is another recommendation for a long book that will keep you entertained, in my opinion. So that was 1852, 53. Let's see. Moving on to the later 18th. So we have the 1870s. I have 3 novels from the 1870s, so that seemed to be a good decade for me at least. The first one from 1871 is one I really want to reread because I wouldn't mind rereading all of her works. The long novel par excellence, Middlemarch. I read this a long time ago and loved it, and then I listened to it a fairly long time ago. So it's been a while since I've read it. So I think I might want to dive in again. It's she's just such an excellent writer. She's so astute psychologically about her characters, and she does a good job of setting them into action. Very different from people like Dickens later. I mean, more psychological in a certain sense. Oh, I love it so much. Masterly evocation of diverse lives and changing fortunes in a provincial community. Exactly. But really well done and really pulls you in. Oh, I really want to reread this. I might start a reread pile. So that's 1871. And then the other one I really, more recently, is also Eliot, is Deronda. Daniel Deronda is amazing. I love it so much. And in a way, I like the Gwendolen story more. I think it's more compelling. Although the Deronda stuff's really good too. And the depiction of the family, the very sort of the functioning family, and then the sort of Gwendolen's plight, and then the woman he saves. It's just a fantastic novel, and so interesting with her depiction of Jewish culture. I want to reread it. I love Middlemarch. So 1876 for that one. And then what I'm going to call a sort of beginning, if you're into long books, a beginning one. And I'm trying to think if I read this or did I listen to it? I probably listened to it. Did I listen to it or did I read it? I can't remember. Maybe I did listen to it. Knowing me, I probably did it, though I don't have a strong memory of the actually listening to it. So maybe I did read it. I'm sorry, I'm being vague. It's Anna Karenina. I loved it too. I just love Karenina so much. I think I love it more than War and Peace, although not that much more. I mean, War and Peace is amazing too. This is easier, I think, because it pulls you. It's more melodramatic. I mean, and it's melodramatic with Anna Karenina, and then the other couple. I like Levin. I think a lot hinges on whether you can bear with sort of austere, serious, clumsy Levin and his love for the lady that he loves. And all his sort of saga. It's funny how these novels have names of one character, but in them, another character is almost as important, if not more so. And that's the case with Anna Karenina too. What else to say? I'm just frustrated that I can't remember if I read it or listened to it. I think I must have listened to it, but I did also dip in to get quotes and stuff. So I would say this is almost perhaps easier than things like Dickens or Bleak House for sure. So in terms of easiness, Nickleby is pretty easy, I would think, sort of pleasant. And then this is pretty pleasant too. And then you can maybe start something like Middlemarch or more Dickens, you know, if you're sort of wary. Let's see, what else do we have here? Not that much more. So that's 1878, and now we're getting into the 20th century, sorry. And the first one there is, I have it as 3, but it is kind of a one book, but I have the 3 volumes separately because I really love these covers. It's Kristin Lavransdatter from Sigrid Undset from 1920. She got the Nobel Prize for it. Definitely a listen. I remember very, very vividly how much I was drawn into it. And here's a sort of caveat. I know that my husband, I don't know if he read the whole thing, but he wasn't as into it as I was. It's a woman's story. It's from the perspective. Her husband was such a piece of work. I mean, I could see why she loved him, but I don't know. And then she had all these kids, and it's taking place in 14th century Norway. So, you know, even any kind of childbirth, any kind of medical stuff back then. But it's just a great story. It's a wonderful story of her life. And I even like the last one where she's kind of like it's more religious and spiritual, and I loved it too. Oh, Kristin Lavransdatter, what a great book. You have fond memories of them. They stay with you, like, you know, friends. They're friends. That was 1920. And then we get into 1943. One that's really up for a reread. These are two German books. I have two copies here of the same work. It's pretty long, even though it looks like it's not that long, but these are thin pages. Hermann Hesse's, in German, it's called Glass Pearl Game, but I think the English title is different. Magisterludi is what they call it. I'll check. 1943. So wow, before the war ended, he wrote this. Oh, that's interesting. I want to find out more about how he got to write this strange novel. It's a very strange novel, and to be honest, I like Hesse, but I don't like him. I'm a little bit sort of with Hesse. But I really want to reread this because it's such a strange novel about this game and this person who plays it so well. And the game is sort of, it's very abstract. Everything with Hesse is sort of like abstract in a certain sense, or sort of, what's the word, paradigmatic. It's sort of trying to symbolize something else. And that's just the way he writes. And this game is sort of like music of the spheres. It's very, and then it's all about you become a kind of priest of the game, and you go into a school to learn how to play it. And this is interesting because it is kind of, the point of view is sort of similar to the next novel. Oh, that's my long favorite. It's trying to, someone else is trying to do a biography. So it's sort of, here I am trying to write about someone else. It's an attempt at a life description of Magisterludi Josef Knecht, this master of the game. I think it's called Magisterludi in English. And actually, I do kind of think I might want to reread this because my tastes have changed and I've become more okay with long books. I remember sort of struggling with this one because I, to be honest, found it a tiny bit boring, or I think there was a bit of a resistance to Hesse in me that I need to get over. He is what he is. He's a very interesting writer, and he's one that I would probably kind of make more videos about, just to find out for myself, to find out more, start a sort of Hesse project. He got the Nobel Prize too, didn't he? He's an interesting fellow. Interesting. Let's see, that's 43. And then my favorite novel is next. My favorite novel of all time. I have a very close connection to this novel. It's Doktor Faustus by Thomas Mann. I did actually read this, didn't listen to this. I don't think I would listen to Mann. I want to read his words. Amazing novel. His take on the Faust legend. Also an attempt at it's a sort of, here one person is writing the biography of another person, and we kind of are we're looking over the person who's writing the biography's shoulder. So that's the point of view. His best friend is writing about this very strange person who turns out to be in weirdly abstract ways in cahoots with the underworld. Although, to be honest, I don't even remember that part. I do know that he seems to be representing Mephistopheles, the main guy. So one thing I remember about this novel, first of all, it's very poignant because it starts like, it ends, the writing ends, no, the person who he's writing about dies at the beginning in 1939, and he ends the novel in 1945. So the two zeros, the two terrible times for Germany, the beginning of the war and the end of the war. And it's a very poignant way to end the novel. And then one thing about the main guy, Dr. Faustus, this I forget his name, Adrian Knecht, what's the guy's name? Adrian Leverkühn is the person he's writing about, the stand-in for Mephistopheles, I think. And he's a brilliant musician. That's the thing. It's a very musical novel. There's a lot of music in here. And in the beginning, there are these sections where they have a teacher who lectures to them on Beethoven. For pages and pages, there's stuff about late Beethoven piano stuff that's absolutely amazing. And there's a lot about music in here. And I think, actually, I think there's a connection to 12 Toga Schoenberg or something. Oh, see, I have to go back and do some research on that. So it's composed or structured in a musical way, even, I think. And his what's the word? Mastery of the German language and the way he can just express things. He's the supreme stylist. He's just amazing. It's hard to describe how wonderful his German is to me and how it sounds. He's one of the main ones, me even more than Kafka, and for sure more than Hesse. And I'm glad I can read it in German, because I think it probably gets lost in English a little bit. I mean, it's probably still good, worth reading, but I love Thomas Mann, and I'm sort of saving his other stuff. I still need to read quite a few of his. I've read Magic Mountain, could reread it. Buddenbrooks, would like to reread it, and then there's other stuff I haven't read that I'm sort of saving. Maybe. Doktor Faustus, that was 1947, so not that far off after the war either. The next two are in the 50s. We have one from each side of the Cold War, looks like. And the first one is a hard one, but a worthwhile one. It took me a long time. And I'm just realizing there's one here that I didn't look up, the year, that I'll do at the end. Oh my gosh, this took me a long time. But the recognitions, this is sort of like, there was a time that still, there's a group of people who read these long, hard books. And this drew me to Gaddis. I've always been interested in it, just the title just interested me. And I'm really glad I read it. It's extremely referential. So it's about this strange religious person, father figure, who has something happen to him, and then it's mainly about his son, who's a sort of thwarted artist. So whereas Mann is all musical, this is all about pictures and art and architecture too. Lots of references. There's a good website that helps you with it. And I do remember reading it, reading it. And then what happened was at the end, I even did a vlog about wanting to finish it, and I read a lot in one day. And I now regret that, because the last part didn't stay with me as much. I mean, I kind of know what happened, but I was reading to finish it because it's so long. I can say damn on my channel. People say damn in George Eliot. They don't say it in, what's his name? Tom Jones. They always cross out the D. Anyway, it's like almost 1,000 pages, apparently. Let's see here. Yeah. We're getting to the 933 pages long work of fantastic fiction. He's also a really good stylist. I remember his descriptions of parties and weather and people, and they're all kind of strange. And it's a little bit experimental, the way his depictions of people are. There's one guy who's always he walks around on all fours all the time, or he's just, am I recalling that correctly? And then there's sort of mistaken identities thing going on, and there's a lot of humor in here. It's quite funny. I'm not doing a good job of summarizing this fantastic big novel, but I have other videos on my channel, so you can check it out. And I'm not ready for a reread of this. I want to read his other one, and I have it on my shelf, JR. I like Gaddis. I had a bad experience with Gas. I know Leaf by Leaf did the tunnel and all that. I'm a little over misogynistic men talking about Hitler stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But people like his style too, Gas. But I like Gaddis. And let's see, that was 55. And now the other side, the Cold War side, is I did listen to this. And I don't think I liked it as much as like Recognitions, but I do love Dr. Zhivago. It's a good listen. It's a nice, strange novel makes you sad about Russia, because it's like, it hasn't been good for a long time. Russia hasn't been good. When was Russia good? I mean, in terms of, okay. And it's heading into more bad times with Stalin at the end of this. And of course, this was written under Stalin, first published in Italy. All strange. He was kind of strange because he was appeased by Stalin. They had a strange relationship. More so than the Bulgakov, I think, as I recall. he was more willing to go along. But the novel itself was published first in Italy. Anyway, this is a really good listen. So I don't remember who read it, but I liked it. I think it would have been a little bit... I think I enjoyed it. This is a good listen. So ones that have a strong plot, that are not too experimental, you kind of... It moves along, you know, things happen. This would be a good listen. Of course, translated by Pavir and Volokhonsky, and I'm sorry I didn't mention who translated same people. Pavir and Volokhonsky, Larissa and Richard. Those people did Canada, and they also translated Zhivago, another long one that I recommend. And we're almost at the end. The most recent one is from 1970. Oops. Actually, yeah, that's my question. Jerusalem, that's recent. What are some new long ones? I know there are a lot out there. There's Wollman and Fosse. These people, and actually it reminds me, another whole set of videos I could make is about series that go on and on. Zola, Knausgaard, and other ones. So yeah, there's a lot of new stuff that's long too. That's true. I just haven't read it. My latest one. Let me just check the year for this one that I didn't check. Sorry, I'm doing it on camera. It's 1940, so this is quite old, and this is from the brilliant Australian writer Kristin Steed, The Man Who Loved Children. This is a bit harrowing because it's a negative portrayal of family. But it's really, really good. The writing's really good. I read it with Britta Bola, and I do have a bit of a hang up about the fact that she thought she had to move it to America, even though their way of talking to each other, even when they're sort of being mean, and the way they kind of interact, it just seemed very Australian to me. So I kind of got this cognitive dissonance of, but they're in Washington, but they seem Australian. Maybe I got too hung up on that, but it's still a really, really good. She's an excellent writer, and I would like to read other of her works. So this sort of negative portrayal of family, it's actually very modern for 1940. It's sort of unrelentingly sad, and the father's awful in an interesting way. It's not sort of essay-ish. It's more, borderline. He's weird, but not really. It's kind of goes in a different sort of direction. It's more like uncaring and self. He's a narcissist, but he just sort of doesn't care. Then no one cares about the kids. Like they're sort of neglecting them, and just because they're too caught up in their own awful lives, I guess. It's good. It's very good, and that's why I think the title kind of gives it kind of this wrong. It kind of goes the wrong way when you see this title, "The Man Who Loved Children." Yes, but it's still a very good book. Let's see. That's it except for one. 1970, and an amazing reading experience for me. And I think it's on, I don't know if I have this on video anymore. Maybe I took them down because I took earlier iterations of my channel down because I had a fit of no one wants to see this. And I think I kind of deleted them. They're gone. Yeah, pretty sure. Which is fine. They weren't that good, so don't worry about it. But Anniversaries by Uwe Janssen is an amazing work. It's diary entries of a whole year, 1967. Well, it starts August in 1 year. August 1967, and it ends a year later, I guess, August 68. And it's about this woman who is German but has moved to New York, and I love New York. I have a sort of very European, nostalgic, sort of romantic idea of what New York represents, as opposed to my husband who's from Cleveland and who kind of looks down on New York or doesn't like it. And for example, the novel has a lot of stuff about the New York Times as this aunt. And back then I could sort of see that. Now we're all kind of, some of us are a little bit upset with the New York Times, although whatever, politically speaking. But it's such an institution, and it has a lot in the book about the New York Times. She reads it very sort of pedantically, I would say. And she's a really, really interesting character. He's done a great job with Gesine, and I even love her name, Gesine Crespal, GC, I'm CG, and just going through so the way I read it, yeah, it goes to August 68. is that I read it each day as a diary. And the great thing, it's falling apart. If I read this again, which I would love to do, I would get a different copy, I think. What happened was I happened to read it in a year where the days were the same. For some reason, I thought that was amazing. I thought it was a sign from above that I need to read this novel. So, for example, the first entry is, oh gosh, what is it here? Monday, the 21st of August. So it was a Monday in my year too, and I read this a couple of years ago. And Uwe Jonsson is the author, and he's a really, really good writer. He didn't live very long. He lived in Ireland at the end and died pretty young. But what's funny about the novel is he puts himself in the novel as a character, which is, in the end, he's in the background and she sees him, because she sort of participates in the intellectual life a little bit of, and she's one of these people who, she does work in a bank, I think, and she's very smart and sort of becomes, people kind of see that she's special somehow, she's smart or whatever, and I guess can translate. So she gets plucked and works with higher ups, and then she has sort of relationships with higher ups too, and with one guy specifically. And it's all, the thing about the narrative style is it's very, very good, but it's a little bit, there's a little bit of oblique experimental aspect to it, so that things are not sort of spelled out completely, but enough that you get enough of a connection to them all, but a little bit sort of slant, tell the truth, but tell it slant. Like, and a lot of the novel, even though it's in diary form, is stuff about her childhood and her parents, and how they got through where they're from in North Germany through the Nazi time period, and came through and then ended up in East Germany. So even though it's set in 1968 and it is diary entries, a lot of it goes back to earlier times. And it's called Anniversaries, and what's good about it, it's an interesting year, 1967. It's the assassination of Bobby Kennedy, I think. And what else happened in something else big happened in 1967 or 1968. Anyway, a lot is happening in the world in terms of politics. And so, yeah, it's an amazing work, and it was just so much fun. I don't mind. Actually, it reminds me, there's two works that are long that I'm taking years to read, but I don't have time to tell it because I've already had half an hour, so I will tell you about them another time. Anyway, we're almost at half an hour. Sorry. So another really good one I read, I don't even know if you can get this. I know that it's out in English in a multiple edition. It just came out. That's why it was in the sort of, there was a bit of buzz about Anniversaries. And it's another fantastic long novel, especially if you're interested in a really interesting take on World War II, kind of covering it and going into the East stuff, but then also a lot about New York and America. So it's great. It's just really, really good. And I love Jacina so much. And the ending's kind of sad too, as I recall. But yeah, so I'm sorry I have blabbed, but that's what you get when you ask me to talk about long books. And there are other ones that I can talk about another time. I'll talk to you soon, and tell me your favorite long books. I'd like to hear. And I think the shortest one here is 500-600. So yeah, that's where I sort of say a long book is a long book. And now I need to get back to my long books, mainly Tom Jones. I'm trying to finish that before school starts, or at least almost finish it, and then onward with other long books and short books. I'll see you soon. Thank you all for watching, and thanks for the encouragement to do this. Bye.